lesson, I'm going to teach you how to use the common expression but. Now, when we use but in different types of sentences, its meaning changes. So today I'm going to take you through a few sentences and let's see how but is used differently. Alright? In my first example here, but is used to join two different ideas. They may be totally different contradictory ideas. For example, he is poor but honest. Now, I can even say he is poor, full stop, he is honest. But when I make two sentences into one with two different, completely different ideas, I'll say he is poor but honest. Now, let's take a look at another example. There are certain changes happening in your organization. They are small changes. So, there are a lot of small changes but important. So, again, totally two different ideas, small changes and the changes being important. So, instead of saying there are a lot of changes, small changes, they are important. There are a lot of small changes but important. Okay, so we use but when we talk about two different ideas. Alright, let's take a look at some other uses. We use but when you want to say except, when you want to make an exception to something that you say. For example, he ate everything but meat. So when he was served at the table, he ate everything but meat. So that means he ate everything except meat. Well, probably you're bored, you're sitting home, there's nothing to do. So you say there's nothing to do but sleep. So except sleeping, you have nothing to do. There is no television, no music. So there is nothing to do but sleep or except sleep. So when you use but in a sentence like this, that means you are making an exception to something that you say. Okay? We also use but, moving on to the next example, we also use but when you want to say only. Now this is not very, this is very unusual, but a lot of people do use this when you want to say only. For example, this is but one of the ways to resolve the issue. So this is only one of the ways to resolve the issue. Okay? Or if I say there is but one moon and one sun, that means there is only one moon and one sun. Friends, please don't get confused. Again, this is a very unusual way of using but nonetheless, it is important to know that it can be used to express only. Okay, so moving on to the next one, can't but or can't help but. Now we use this when you want to emphasize that something is true and there is no other possibility. Okay, for example, I can't help but admire your courage. Well, there is no other possibility. It is true that you're a very courageous person, so I can't help but admire your courage. Well, probably if you're injured, you say, I can't help but cry in pain. There is nothing else to do at that moment. You're in deep pain, so you say, I can't help but cry in pain. Alright? So either you can say can't but or can't help but. It is used to emphasize something that is true. Alright, moving on to the next sentence, but for. When you want to say something that had not existed or happened. Now, for example, I would have come on time but for the traffic. So, if the traffic didn't exist or there was no traffic jam, there was no traffic that took place or happened, I would have come on time. So, I would have come on time but for the traffic. If the traffic did not exist, you would have come on time. So, when you want to say something that had not existed or happened, you say but for. Alright? In the next sentence, but then and but then again. Now let's take a look at but then. In the example here, they never worked hard. But then who did? Now in my first part of the sentence, they never worked hard. It's kind of a complaint. I'm not really happy about it. They never worked hard. When I use but then, I'm using it because I'm making a remark in the second part of my sentence, who did, which is slightly contradictory to this. If you realize in this part of the sentence, I'm not happy, I'm complaining. But when I use but then, I use it before making a remark to slightly contradict what I just said. So I say, but then who did? So it's okay, no one did. Alright? So we use but then before a remark that is slightly contradictory to what you have just said. Okay? Now let's take a look at but then again. This is just a little different from this one. Like this. My friend spends hours at the salon. Okay, now this is something surprising. So if I tell you, you know, my friend spends hours at the salon, it's surprising. But then, to make it less surprising, I say, but then again, so do I. So when I use but then again, I use it before an expression that I just used that was a little surprising. So I'm trying to tell you, hey, listen, don't be surprised. I do it too. So I say, but then again, so do I. Alright? So now I'm going to take you through another use of the common expression but. Well, so now we look at the expression ifs and buts. Well, my boss said complete the project on time, no ifs and buts. Now we use no ifs and buts to say that no excuses. So anything that you say is not good enough for reason, we say, hey, listen, come on time, okay? No ifs and buts. That means no giving lame excuses or reasons. Okay, friends, so when you use the expression no ifs and buts, you say no excuses, or your reasons that you're giving are just not good enough.